Welcome back to the channel, coins buyers and treasure hunters from around the world. Today you're about to hear one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in American coin history, a story that proves a tiny 1-cent coin sitting quietly in a drawer could be worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, and even entire companies. We're talking about the legendary 1-cent 1969 Lincoln penny, a humble copper coin with a face value of just 1 cent that has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and historians alike because, under extremely rare circumstances and due to astonishing mint errors, mistake varieties, and mint mark anomalies, this coin has been rumored, valued, and speculated at figures reaching an almost unbelievable $384 million, making it one of the most talked about and mysterious Lincoln pennies ever known. And as you listen closely, you'll understand exactly why this ordinary-looking coin has the potential to be extraordinary. The 1969 Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint during a time of massive coin production in the United States. The late 1960s were a chaotic period for the U.S. Mint as demand for coins skyrocketed due to population growth, vending machines, and rising commerce, and this pressure often resulted in mistakes, errors, and inconsistencies slipping past quality control. The Lincoln penny, introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, had already gone through many design and metal composition changes, but by 1969 it was composed primarily of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc, giving it that classic reddish-brown color most people recognize. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. And while millions upon millions of 1969 pennies were minted, the overwhelming majority are only worth 1 cent or perhaps a few cents in circulated condition. However, a microscopic fraction of these coins contain rare minting errors that transform them into priceless artifacts. One of the most famous and important factors driving the astronomical value of certain 1969 Lincoln cents is the presence of dramatic doubled die errors, especially doubled die obverse varieties. While most collectors are familiar with the legendary 1969's doubled die obverse penny, which has sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, the concept behind these errors applies to the Denver Mint as well. When a double die occurs, it is not caused by simple wear or machine doubling, but by a misalignment during the die creation process, where the die impresses the design onto the coin twice at slightly different angles, resulting in strong, clear doubling visible on the date, the word Liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." On a true doubled die, these letters appear thick, separated, and almost shadowed, and when such a doubled die exists on a 1969 penny, it becomes an ultra-rare discovery because the Denver Mint was generally more consistent with die preparation, making confirmed examples exceptionally scarce. Another factor that elevates the potential value of a 1969 Lincoln penny is the presence of mint mark errors. The small d mint mark located below the date signifies it was struck in Denver, but errors involving this mint mark can be extremely valuable, such as a repunched mint mark where the d appears double tilted or punched multiple times into the die, creating overlapping shapes or unusual outlines. Even more valuable is the possibility of a missing mint mark error, which would be highly unusual for a Denver issue since Denver coins almost always carried their mint mark. A missing D could suggest a transitional die or a minting anomaly that escaped detection, and such a coin would instantly become one of a kind. Collectors place immense value on mint mark errors because they help tell the story of how coins were made and where the minting process went wrong. Another astonishing category of errors that could push a 1969 penny into legendary status includes off-metal strikes and wrong planchet errors. If a 1969 Lincoln cent were accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, such as a dime or foreign coin, the result would be a coin with the wrong weight, color, and metallic composition. Imagine a 1969 penny struck on a silver dime planchet or a brass foreign planchet. Such an error would not only be visually stunning but historically priceless, because it demonstrates a major failure in planchet handling. Inside the mint, coins like this have sold for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in extreme unique cases speculative valuations climb into the millions, especially if the error is dramatic, well preserved, and authenticated by major grading services. Double strike errors also play a huge role in the incredible value potential of these pennies. A double struck coin occurs when a coin is struck once, then fails to eject properly, and is struck again, often at a rotated angle overlapping the original design. The result can be a chaotic and mesmerizing image where Lincoln's face appears twice, or the date, and lettering overlap in strange distorted ways. If a 1969 D penny were double struck with significant rotation or multiple strikes, it would be an error that collectors dream of because it provides undeniable visual proof of the minting mishap. The more dramatic the error, the higher the value, and when combined with other anomalies like off-center strikes, the price can skyrocket. Off-center strikes themselves are another key factor. If a 1969 D penny was struck off-center, leaving part of the blank planchet exposed while still showing a full date and mint mark, it becomes far more desirable. Collectors especially seek off-center errors of 50% or more because they perfectly balance error visibility with identifiable details. These coins are rare because most severely off-center coins were rejected during mint inspection, but a few escaped and survived circulation, adding to their mystique. Clipped planchet errors also contribute to the legendary status of some pennies. A clipped planchet occurs when the metal strip from which blanks are punched overlaps or is misfed, resulting in a coin with a missing curved or straight section along the edge. While minor clips are relatively common, large dramatic clips, especially combined with other errors like doubling or off-center strikes, can drastically increase value. Another rare and fascinating error category involves broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread outward, becoming wider and thinner than normal. If a 1969 D penny exhibits a broad strike with clear design details and a strong mint mark, it becomes a standout piece, and when such a coin is preserved in uncirculated condition, the value multiplies exponentially. One of the most intriguing and speculative factors behind the rumored $384 million valuation involves unique, one-of-a-kind error combinations, coins that display multiple major errors simultaneously. For example, a 1969 D Lincoln penny that is struck on the wrong planchet exhibits a doubled die obverse, shows a repunched mint mark, and is double struck off-center. Such a coin would be unprecedented in numismatic history. Collectors value uniqueness above almost everything else, and a coin with an error combination never seen before could theoretically command any price the market is willing to bear, especially if wealthy collectors or museums compete to own it. Provenance also plays a crucial role. If such a coin were discovered in a famous collection or traced back to an original mint employee or historic hoard, its value would increase dramatically. Condition is another massive factor. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state, with higher grades commanding exponentially higher prices. A 1969 D era penny preserved in mint state red condition with full original luster, nowhere in sharp details, would be infinitely more valuable than the same era coin found heavily worn. Authentication by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC is essential because the coin market is flooded with fakes, altered coins, and machine doubling that inexperienced collectors mistake for genuine errors. A certified slab example provides confidence and legitimacy, which opens the door to elite auctions where record-breaking prices are possible. Another reason the 1969 D Lincoln penny captivates collectors is its historical context. 1969 was a year of monumental events, including the Apollo 11 moon landing, social upheaval, and major cultural shifts. Coins minted during such years carry additional symbolic weight, and collectors love tying tangible objects to pivotal moments in history. This emotional connection can drive prices far beyond traditional valuation models. Rumors, stories, and legends also fuel the mystique. Over the years, tales have circulated about secret experimental strikes, prototype dies, and coins quietly removed from the mint. Some claim that unique 1969 D pennies with unauthorized die experiments exist locked away in private collections. While these claims are difficult to verify, the possibility alone ignites the imagination of collectors and investors, and in the world of rare coins, perception and narrative can be just as powerful as metal and numbers. The idea that a simple penny could be worth hundreds of millions captures public attention, bringing new collectors into the hobby and increasing demand overall. Even if only a handful of these coins reach 6- or 7-figure prices, the speculation itself pushes values higher, turns into unbelievable stories, hidden histories, and jaw-dropping possibilities. And in this video, we're diving straight into one of the most talked about and mysterious modern-era coins ever discussed by collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people alike: the 1-cent 1984 Lincoln penny. A simple copper-colored coin most people have spent without a second thought, yet one that has fueled rumors, research, excitement, and even legendary valuations reaching as high as $756 million when the right combination of errors, mint mark mistakes, production anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances collide, and while that number sounds shocking compared to its humble face value of 1 cent, the journey of how such a figure is even whispered about is what makes this coin so fascinating and worth exploring in depth. Because the 1984 Lincoln cent was produced during a period of massive coin production in the United States, a time when billions of pennies were struck to meet circulation demands, and whenever production reaches such enormous levels, the possibility for mistakes increases dramatically, and those mistakes are exactly where collectors find value far beyond face value, starting with the most famous and widely known error associated with the 1984 penny, the doubled die of verse. An error that occurred during the hubbing process when the die received a misaligned impression and then was impressed again, creating visible doubling on design elements, particularly noticeable on Lincoln's ear, beard, and sometimes the lettering, an error so distinct that even new collectors can sometimes spot it with the naked eye, and this single error alone has pushed certain examples into the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars depending on condition, strike clarity, and preservation. But the story does not stop there, because beyond the classic doubled die, there are off-center strikes where the blank planchet was not properly aligned during striking, resulting in part of the design missing and blank space showing, and when these off-center errors are dramatic and still show the date and mint details, they become highly desirable, especially when combined with clean surfaces and minimal wear. And then there are broad strikes, where the retaining collar failed, allowing the coin to expand outward when struck, creating a wider than normal penny with distorted lettering. A mistake that immediately catches the eye and signals something unusual happened during production. And when collectors talk about astronomical figures like $756 million, they are often imagining a theoretical scenario where multiple major errors exist on a single coin, something like a double die of verse combined with an off-center strike, a wrong planchet error, and a missing or incorrect mint mark, all authenticated, perfectly preserved, and unique, or nearly unique. Which is where the realm of possibilities begins to stretch the imagination, because the 1984 penny was struck primarily in Philadelphia with no mint mark and in Denver with a mint mark, and mint mark errors themselves open another door to value, including missing mint marks where one should exist, repunched mint marks where the letter was punched multiple times leaving overlapping impressions, or even mint marks placed in unusual positions, and while rare, these mistakes are documented across U.S. coinage history. And when they appear on already famous error years like 1984, they can cause excitement to explode. Then there are wrong planchet errors, where a penny was struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another metal composition, such as being struck on a dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or an experimental alloy, resulting in weight, color, and size differences that immediately signal rarity. And if a 1984 Lincoln cent were ever authenticated on a completely unique or undocumented planchet, especially one tied to experimental metallurgy or a transitional error, its value would move from the realm of thousands into uncharted territory, which is why some speculative valuations soar into extreme numbers, because collectors do not just pay for metal and design, they pay for uniqueness, story, and the inability to ever replace an item once it disappears into a private collection. And speaking of metal, the 1984 penny sits in an interesting era because it was struck after the major transition from mostly copper to copper-plated zinc, yet transitional errors can still happen, and any coin struck on an incorrect composition or showing improper plating, missing plating, bubbles, peeling, or exposed zinc core can become highly collectible, especially when the error is dramatic and well preserved. And then there are die cracks, die breaks, cuds, and retained cuds, where parts of the die broke away, leaving raised blobs or missing details on the coin. Errors that tell a story of worn-out equipment pushed to its limits to meet demand. And when such errors appear large and visually striking, collectors often compete fiercely to own them, pushing prices higher and higher, and condition plays a massive role in all of this, because a pristine uncirculated coin with sharp details, original luster, and no post-mint damage can multiply value exponentially compared to a worn example, and if a legendary era coin were found in near-perfect condition, untouched by circulation, stored away unknowingly for decades, it would ignite intense interest across the entire numismatic world, And when people talk about figures like $756 million, they are often imagining a perfect storm scenario, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that combines extreme rarity, historical importance, flawless condition, and massive demand from elite collectors, museums, and investors who view such pieces as irreplaceable cultural artifacts rather than simple coins. And history has shown us that when a coin reaches that level of importance, traditional price guides no longer apply, because the value becomes whatever the highest bidder is willing to pay, and sometimes those bidders think in terms far beyond normal market logic, especially when legacy, prestige, and exclusivity are involved, and the Lincoln cent itself adds emotional weight, because Abraham Lincoln is one of the most iconic figures in American history. And his portrait has appeared on the penny for over a century, making any extraordinary Lincoln cent feel like a direct connection to the nation's past, and the 1984 penny sits at a crossroads of modern minting technology and human error, making it a symbol of how even in an age of automation, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes create legends. And this is why people all over the world continue to search their change, examine old jars, inherited collections, and forgotten drawers, hoping to spot that one unusual detail. That doubling on Lincoln's ear, that off-center strike, that strange weight or color. That missing or odd mint mark, because the difference between 1 cent and millions of dollars can sometimes come down to a tiny imperfection, and while not every 1984 penny will be valuable, and most will always be worth just face value, the possibility that one extraordinary example could exist keeps the dream alive, fuels the excitement, and reminds us that history, rarity, and human error can transform the most ordinary object into something priceless. So the next time you see a 1984 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it, look closer, because behind that familiar design could be a story worth telling, a mystery waiting to be solved, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. And that is exactly why coins like the 1 cent 1984 Lincoln penny continue to capture imaginations, spark debates, and inspire collectors around the globe to keep searching, learning, and believing that treasure might be hiding in plain sight. Where everyday pocket change turns into extraordinary stories and unbelievable possibilities, and today we are diving into a coin that most people have seen, spent, or ignored without a second thought, the humble 1 cent 1995 Lincoln penny, a small copper coin with Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait that at first glance looks no different from millions of others, yet according to long-standing collector rumors, error coin lore, and extreme hypothetical valuations, this ordinary-looking cent has been whispered about as being worth as much as $875 million in very rare and almost mythical circumstances. And in this video we are going to explore why this coin is so fascinating, how its errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and striking possibilities have turned it into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln pennies, and why collectors all over the world still check their spare change hoping to find something special, because the story of the 1995 Lincoln cent is not just about money, it is about history, curiosity, human error, and the thrill of discovery. Now let's take a deep journey into this remarkable coin and understand how something with a face value of 1 cent could ever be discussed in the same sentence as hundreds of millions of dollars. The Lincoln cent series itself has always been a favorite among collectors because it connects everyday Americans to their past. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln penny became the first U.S. circulating coin to feature a real historical person, and by 1995 this design had already been in circulation for decades, with the obverse showing Lincoln's profile design by Victor David Brenner, and the reverse still featuring the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of national unity and remembrance. In 1995 the United States Mint produced Lincoln cents at several facilities, including Philadelphia with no mint mark and Denver with the D mint mark, and the Denver Mint alone struck billions of pennies that year, making the 1995 D penny seem incredibly common. And that is exactly what makes the story so intriguing, because the most valuable coins often start as the most ordinary, hiding their secrets in tiny details that only careful eyes can see. When people talk about the astonishing potential value of the 1995 Lincoln cent, they are not talking about a normal example pulled from a roll and spent at a grocery store. They are talking about extreme errors, dramatic minting mistakes, and theoretical one-of-a-kind anomalies that could exist due to the complex and sometimes imperfect process of coin production. The US Mint uses massive presses striking thousands of coins per minute, and even with strict quality control, errors happen, and in rare cases those errors are so unusual that they create coins that defy expectations. The first category of errors that collectors obsess over in the 1995 penny are doubled dies, especially doubled die obverse errors, where the design appears doubled because of a misalignment during the die creation process. The most famous doubled die of the 1990s is the 1995 doubled die obverse from Philadelphia, but collectors have long speculated about the existence of extreme doubled dies from Denver as well, including hypothetical examples with dramatic doubling on Lincoln's eye, beard, date, and inscriptions like Liberty and I in God We Trust, and if a 1995 penny were ever found with an exceptionally strong double die combined with pristine condition and perfect authentication, it would instantly become one of the most important modern era coins ever discovered, pushing values into astronomical territory in theory. Another major area of fascination is off-metal errors, where a penny is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin blank. Imagine finding a 1995 Lincoln cent struck on a silver-colored dime planchet or a thicker bronze planchet meant for another coin. Such errors are extremely rare because planchets are carefully sorted, but history has shown that wrong planchet errors do occur, and when they do, collectors pay enormous premiums. Now take that rarity and combine it with the hype and global attention around Lincoln cents, and you can see how values could escalate into unbelievable numbers, at least in speculative discussions. Then there are missing mint mark errors, and while the Denver Mint normally places a clear D mint mark on its cents, there have been rumors and collector stories about weak, filled, or missing mint marks caused by grease-filled dies or die wear. A 1995 penny with a completely missing or dramatically malformed mint mark, especially if combined with other errors, would be a standout piece, and collectors love coins that break the rules, because they tell a story of the minting process going slightly wrong at just the right moment. Die cracks and die breaks are another source of fascination, where cracks develop in the die and transfer raised lines or even large blobs of metal onto the coin, sometimes called cut errors, and a massive cut on a 1995 Lincoln cent that distorts the design in a dramatic way could make the coin visually stunning and highly desirable. The more dramatic and unique the error, the more collectors are willing to compete for it, pushing prices higher and higher, especially in auctions where emotions and rivalry come into play. Strike-through errors also add to the mystique, where a foreign object like grease, cloth, or metal shavings come between the die and the planchet, leaving an impression or missing design element. A 1995 penny with a clear and unusual strike-through that affects Lincoln's face or the date would be an instant conversation piece. And when collectors talk about extreme valuations like hundreds of millions of dollars, they are often imagining a perfect storm scenario, a coin that combines multiple major errors at once, such as a doubled die, off-metal strike, missing mint mark, and dramatic die break, all on a single coin, something so unique that it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, because value in numismatics is not just about rarity, it is about uniqueness, demand, condition, and story. And the story of a coin that slipped through every layer of quality control carrying multiple impossible errors would captivate the entire collecting world. Condition also plays a massive role, a coin in mint state with full original luster, sharp details, and no circulation is always worth more than a worn example, and if a 1995 era penny were preserved in near-perfect condition, graded at the highest levels by a top grading service, its value would multiply dramatically, adding fuel to the legends surrounding extreme price estimates. Another intriguing aspect is transitional errors, where the mint changes compositions or designs and a few coins are struck using the wrong materials or dies from another year. While 1995 was not a major transition year for cents, collectors still speculate about experimental planchets or test strikes that could theoretically exist, and such coins, if ever confirmed, would rewrite numismatic history, pushing values into uncharted territory. Then there is the psychological factor. The power of belief and storytelling in the coin community. When a rumor spreads that a certain coin could be worth a fortune, thousands of people start searching, talking, posting, and dreaming, and that collective attention itself increases the perceived importance of the coin, making it legendary. The idea of a 1-cent coin being worth hundreds of millions captures the imagination because it represents the ultimate underdog story, turning something overlooked into something extraordinary. And that is why the 1995 Lincoln cent continues to be discussed in forums, videos, and collector circles, even if no confirmed example has ever sold for anything close to such a figure. The value discussion also ties into the broader history of record-breaking coins, such as the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, coins that sold for tens of millions because of rarity, history, and legal intrigue. And collectors imagine that if a modern coin could somehow match that level of uniqueness and importance, there would be no theoretical limit to what a billionaire collector might pay, especially if the coin symbolized a turning point or anomaly in U.S. mint history. The Denver Mint itself has a rich history, and a legendary era from this facility would add another layer of appeal. The phrase "liberty" on the coin also carries symbolic weight, reminding collectors that these small objects are not just money but representations of national ideals, and when an era distorts or alters those symbols, it becomes a tangible reminder that even systems built on precision are operated by humans and machines capable of imperfection. The possibilities that make the 1995 Lincoln cent so valuable in theory are endless, from extreme misalignment strikes where the design is partially missing, to rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are not properly aligned, to blockage errors where one coin impresses its design onto another. Each of these mistakes adds character and rarity. And when collectors imagine a coin that combines several of these features, the mind naturally jumps to extraordinary valuations, especially in a market where the richest collectors are willing to pay staggering amounts for the right piece. It is also important to understand that many of these values are speculative and based on possibilities rather than confirmed sales. But speculation itself is a powerful force.